Hey everybody, what's going on? It's PMOC at 86 Drive. Well, today I figured I would spend a little bit of time talking about why I chose to buy a Porsche. I think it's a question that maybe other people have asked me before, and I've probably answered it in one form or another, but I figured I would spend a little bit more time talking about that and maybe some of the other questions that people follow up with, like, well, why didn't you buy a Porsche 911 instead of a 718 Cayman? Why Porsche? Well, I think it goes back to my childhood. And like many boys, I played with a lot of toy cars and race cars. And I think that the idea of racing and driving and sports cars really stuck with me through the years. It's no surprise for anyone who watches this channel that one of my passionate hobbies is sports cars and driving them. And so naturally I was drawn to these kinds of cars. I remember as a child, I had certain cars that still stick out in my memory. I had a Porsche 917K. I think it was some kind of remote control car that me and my brother shared, but super memorable. Still fondly remember that car to this day. Such an iconic race car. And so, of course, the name Porsche, the brand, the image, all of that has stuck with me over the years. I also really remember this Lancia Stratos rally car that I had. It was just a little pullback toy, and it's been one of my favorite race cars ever since I was a child. But I do think that Porsche, as a brand and as a recognizable icon, has really been stuck in my head for all these years. So sports cars and driving has been a passionate hobby of mine for many years. And so it's probably no real surprise that it has been a lifelong dream of mine to own and drive a Porsche sports car. Porsches are synonymous with racing. There's a strong racing heritage. There's a history of performance and engineering and styling that really makes Porsche as a brand stand out. And I think that that has been with me all these years, ever since I had that toy race car. And so naturally, it has always been a goal of mine for so long now to someday be able to buy and drive a Porsche. And although, of course, I love having my Subaru BRZ and my Toyota MR2, these are fantastic sports cars, but I do feel like moving up to a Porsche is kind of a upgrade, a step up, if you will, in terms of the driving and ownership experience. And so it's something that I've been really looking forward to for a long time. And I'm absolutely excited to be able to do that. It's been the realization of a lifelong dream, and I've been working hard for many years to try and achieve that dream. So why did I buy a Cayman and not a 911? Well, I think everyone knows that the Porsche 911 is the top dog in the Porsche lineup. It's the car that they've built for the vast majority of their history, and it's what they're known for. It's got an iconic design, it's known for its performance, it has the racing heritage, but the Cayman is smaller, lighter, better balanced because of its mid-engine layout. And since I've owned MR2s for many years, I know very well the benefits of a mid-engine balanced sports car. And so naturally, I think I'm more inclined to favor the mid-engine layout. After all, that's why most of the exotics and high-performance cars like Ferrari, McLaren, Lamborghini, they all choose the mid-engine layout for their high-end sports cars. The 911 is rear-engined, and the balance is less than optimal, even though Porsche's engineering is excellent. Don't get me wrong, I really love the 911, and when I had the chance to rent one last year, I had a great time driving that Carrera 4S. And I hope someday to still be able to own a Porsche 911. But the way I see it, the 911 is Porsche's prime product, and they're probably going to make internal combustion engine versions of that for many more years to come. That car is not going away. And so there's plenty of time for me to get a 911, and I hope that I can get one someday. But in the meantime, I feel like the 718 Cayman, as it currently stands, is kind of an endangered species. In fact, they've announced that they intend to discontinue the 718 Cayman in its internal combustion engine form very soon, perhaps in 2025, and they're going to be rolling out an electric vehicle version of it in the next year or so. So in that sense, I felt like time was running out for me to get my hands on a 718 Cayman. And in particular, the GTS with its 4-liter flat 6 engine. They just aren't going to be making those for much longer. So another question that I'm hearing sometimes is, well, why didn't you get a GT4 or a GT4 RS? Well, right off the bat, let me just say that a GT4 RS is crazy expensive, and I just don't have the budget for that. It's just too much money. As a secondary excuse, I would just add that the 4RS is available in PDK only, and so since you can't get a manual, I guess that was kind of a deal breaker for me. I figured since this was going to be kind of my fun car, something to enjoy driving, I really wanted it to be a manual transmission, and not being able to get that in a GT4 RS was, like I said, kind of a deal breaker. I did want a sports car that I could drive with a manual transmission. Now, the GT4, that actually is just within my budget, but unfortunately, as of last year, Porsche has discontinued the GT4. You can't get one brand new anymore. You can't order one or get an allocation for one. And so I guess you'd have to look for one on the used market. So that was kind of a secondary option for me. And in fact, when there was some uncertainty about whether or not I could get the Cayman GTS 4.0, I did start thinking that maybe the backup plan was going to be looking for a used GT4 on the market and making do with that. However, I think the GT4 is a much more track-oriented car and wasn't really in line with what I was looking for as my first Porsche sports car. I was looking for something that's probably a little more of a grand tourer, kind of a weekend car that I can enjoy, something I could take the wife out in the car and she'd actually be willing to get into. I feel like with the firmer suspension, the more sort of track-oriented performance aspects of the GT4, that just wasn't going to be as good of a vehicle for that kind of purpose. I think the GT4 can be a decent street car, but I don't think it's what it's best at. And I think I would feel really bad if I owned a GT4 and never took it out to the racetrack. And the reality is that for a car that cost over $100,000, I really can't afford to take it to the track. That's just too much risk for me. That's why I have the BRZ. It's an affordable track car, and it's something where if something were to happen to it, if I were to crash it or it were to break down on track, I'm not crying over it. But with a Porsche, there's just so much more at risk there with a high dollar value car. And it's just something that at this point in my life, I don't think I'm willing to take that kind of risk. So the GTS, with its adaptive PASM suspension and all the comfort and convenience features, I think ends up being the right car for me. I think another car that people ask me about and whether I had considered it is the Lotus Emira, which, as you know, has just recently come out and is just now available here in the US. And it's a very comparable car. It's about the same size. It has about the same amount of horsepower, about 400 horsepower. It's powered by a Toyota V6 engine, so that's reliable. And I just love Toyotas historically. I have a long history with Lexus and Toyotas, and so it made a lot of sense actually to consider the Lotus Emira. But in the end, I think I decided that my attraction to Porsche was stronger. Again, like I said, it's been a lifelong dream of mine to own and drive a Porsche. I think with Lotus, I've always had a lot of high regard for Lotus, but it's not sort of in that dream car category, at least not for me. Don't get me wrong, I love the look of the Lotus, I love their racing heritage as well, but British car reliability, I guess it's still a bit of a concern, even when it's Toyota powered. There is the question of, the rest of the chassis and the design of the car. But fun fact, at one point many years ago, I did consider buying a Lotus Evora. I actually did go out and test drove at the time both a Evora and a Cayman, and in the end I think I liked the Cayman more. And I think the new Emira raises the bar for Lotus, so it certainly is a competitive car to the Porsche Cayman, but in the grand scheme of things, I think, in my mind at least, the Cayman came out as the winner. So I think it's a very exciting time for me. I've just gotten the Porsche and I'm learning to drive it and get more familiar with it, still trying to get through those break-in miles. So be sure to like and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more content as I continue this journey. I am pursuing this lifelong dream of mine of owning and driving a Porsche. It's been really good so far, with just a few mechanical hiccups as I outlined in some of my prior videos, but hopefully from here on out it's smooth sailing. I'm really looking forward to, as we approach better weather, I'll have more opportunity to take the car out, really enjoy taking it for drives, taking it out to some of the car meets, whether it's Cars and Coffee or the Porsche meets. I have just recently signed up to join the Porsche Club of America, PCA, and so we'll see where that takes me. I understand they have lots of really good meets, some wonderful members that I look forward to getting out there and meeting, and of course there are many tuning shops and performance places that specialize in Porsche. I suspect I will be getting to know some of them in the near future, maybe going to check out some of their shops. Some of them even host meets and things like that, so really looking forward to kind of seeing what the community is like in the Porsche world, and so I hope to bring you along with me for that journey. So again, subscribe and follow me on Instagram as well. That's 718 Drive is the Instagram account that I have for the Porsche Cayman. And of course, for other content, I have the MR2 and the 86 Instagram accounts as well. So check those out if you're interested in sports cars in general. But here on 86 Drive, the YouTube channel, I will continue to keep bringing you all sports car related content. Car meets, canyon runs, track days, all of that kind of stuff. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I really appreciate all of your support and your comments. It really means a lot to me. So I'll see you in the next one. Take care.